The radio contact came in at dawn. Japanese carriers had been located southeast of the Solomon Islands, moving south toward New Guinea. Rear Admiral Frank Fletcher had 2 American carriers, Yorktown and Lexington, both low on fuel, a third of his task force still dispersed after a refueling operation gone wrong. He had perhaps 18 hours before the Japanese landing force reached Port Moresby. What followed over the next 4 days was unlike any naval battle in history. 2 fleets would fight each other without their ships ever coming within visual range. Pilots would return from strikes and not know if they had hit the right targets. Admirals would make decisions on fragmentary intelligence and wrong guesses. It was the first carrier versus carrier battle ever fought, and neither side fully knew how to win. On the 7th of May 1942, 5 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan controlled nearly all of the Western Pacific. The Philippines had surrendered in April. Wake Island had fallen in December. Malaya, Burma, the Dutch East Indies, the oil fields, the rubber plantations, the strategic choke points, all in Japanese hands. The Japanese High Command had set its next objective, Port Moresby on the southern coast of New Guinea. Take Port Moresby, and Japan would control the Coral Sea, bring northern Australia within bomber range, and sever the supply line between the United States and its last major ally in the Pacific. To accomplish this, Admiral Shigeyoshi Inao assembled a powerful invasion force. 2 fleet carriers, Shikaku and Zuikaku, with a combined air wing of more than 120 aircraft, a light carrier, the Shoho, 3 heavy cruisers, 7 destroyers, and a transport convoy carrying 5,000 invasion troops. The fleet was powerful, experienced, and undefeated. Since Pearl Harbor, Japanese carrier aviation had not lost a battle. The Americans had one advantage that offset everything else: broken codes. The intelligence unit at Pearl Harbor, working under Commander Joseph Rochefort, had read enough Japanese naval communications to know the Coral Sea operation was coming. They knew the approximate timing. They knew the rough order of battle. Admiral Chester Nimitz dispatched Task Force 17 South before the Japanese expected any opposition to exist. Fletcher would be outnumbered, operating 1,200 miles from the nearest friendly base in unfamiliar waters, but he would not be surprised. On the morning of May 7th, both fleets launched search planes before dawn, probing vast sectors of empty ocean. American dive bombers found the light carrier Shoho steaming without adequate air cover. The attack was over in 11 minutes. 93 bombs and 13 torpedoes. Shoho rolled and sank in less than half an hour. Commander Robert Dixon radioed Pearl Harbor, "Scratch 1 flat top." It was the first Japanese carrier sunk by the United States in the war, but the main carriers, Shikaku and Zuikaku, were still out there, somewhere to the north. That afternoon, both sides' search planes missed each other's main forces entirely. Weather, poor communications, and a confusing series of false contacts sent strike aircraft chasing ghosts. The Japanese sank an oiler and a destroyer believing they had found fleet carriers. American pilots spent hours searching empty ocean before their fuel forced them home. The decisive clash came the next morning. At 9:15 a.m. on May 8th, American and Japanese strike groups launched simultaneously and crossed each other in the air, going in opposite directions, each heading for the other fleet. The American strike found Shikaku in a momentary break in the clouds. Dive bombers from Yorktown hit her twice on the flight deck, killing 98 men and wrecking her ability to launch aircraft. The Japanese strike found both American carriers exposed in clear weather. Yorktown absorbed 1 bomb through her flight deck. Lexington, larger and less maneuverable, took 2 torpedoes on her port side and 2 bombs on her superstructure. Her crew fought the fires for nearly 3 hours and nearly saved her. Then gasoline vapors, leaking from a fractured aviation fuel line, reached an electric motor. At 12:47 p.m., the first internal explosion shook the ship. More followed. The fires became uncontrollable. At 5:07 p.m., Fletcher ordered abandon ship. A destroyer fired 5 torpedoes to finish her. Lexington went down with 216 men. By every tactical measure, Japan had won. They had sunk a fleet carrier and a destroyer while losing only a light carrier. Shikaku was damaged, but afloat. The invasion of Port Moresby could be rescheduled, but the Japanese commander on the scene, surveying his own losses, particularly the aircraft and experienced crews lost over the 4-day engagement, recommended withdrawing the invasion convoy. Imperial headquarters agreed. Port Moresby was never taken by sea. The strategic consequences were disproportionate to the result. Shikaku required 2 months of repair. Zuikaku had survived undamaged, but her air group had been gutted. Too few experienced pilots remained to prepare for the Midway operation in June. Both carriers sat out the most important naval battle of the Pacific War. At Midway, the Japanese attacked with 4 fleet carriers instead of 6. That margin, those 2 absent ships, and the pilots who had died in the Coral Sea would be the difference between an ambush that worked and one that failed catastrophically. The Battle of the Coral Sea was a new kind of war. Fleets 100 miles apart, unable to see each other, making irreversible decisions on guesswork and broken radio traffic. It proved that the aircraft carrier had replaced the battleship as the decisive weapon of naval warfare. Everything that followed, the doctrine, the tactics, the search pattern mathematics, the damage control procedures, was built on what was learned here. The Coral Sea was a tactical defeat. It was also the battle that made victory at Midway possible.